Looking to travel Australia or even move here on a working holiday visa? Well, this video is for you. Hi friends, my name is Dane. I'm a 29-year-old from England. I moved to Australia last year on a working holiday visa. I hope my channel can inspire you to chase your dreams, whatever that is, and do a bit more traveling, especially in beautiful Australia. I recently did a 2-week van trip over in Western Australia, and for the first time in my entire life, I recorded every single dollar that I spent. I hope this video can give you guys some insight into the realities of traveling Australia or even living here, because there's a rumor, and the rumor is that Australia is expensive, but I'll let you be the judge of that. So make sure you stick around to the end to find out how much we spent in total. Let me know your thoughts on this topic down in the comments below. You know, if you think I spent too much on food, tell me. If you think you could spend less, or if you think actually that's very reasonable, let me know down in the comments. Before we get into the video, I'm just gonna give you some context on me, my life, the trip. So first up, I live on the east coast of Australia. So I live in, where do I live? I live in Wollongong, which is about an hour south of Sydney. So of course, if I'm starting the trip in Perth, I had to fly from Sydney. Little fun fact for you, it took 5 hours to fly to the other side of the country. That is how big Australia is. I spent $594 on return flights from Sydney to Perth, Perth to Sydney. I flew with Jetstar. I actually really rate Jetstar. They're the budget airline in Australia. So if you are coming to Australia, travel with them if you're looking to save some money. I'm not going to include the cost of the flights in the total trip because me and my friend, we flew in from different places, and I just want to focus on how much the trip itself costs, minus the flights. So for context, I did this trip in March 2022. I did it with a friend, so we split the cost. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing the joint cost, and at the end, I'll tell you what that cost is separately. I'm going to be using Aussie dollars in this video, but I will put on screen like conversions just so you get an idea of like how much that is on US dollars, euros, or if you're coming from England, pounds. And one last thing, we drove 3,292 kilometers, or about 2,000 miles. So I was really shocked at how far we actually drove. We did this in 2 weeks, just me and a friend, and we had the time of our lives. So firstly, if you're coming to Australia, definitely go to the West Coast. Personally, I think West Coast is the best coast. The beaches are stunning, there's no one there. Crystal blue waters, white sand beaches, you'll see for yourself. If you haven't watched any of my other videos, I just finished up a 4-part series showing you all the cool spots that you can go to in Western Australia. There's also a blog post, I'll link that down below as well. So we've landed in Perth. Before we drive anywhere, we have 2 upfront costs, and that is van rental and insurance. So in total, the van rental for 14 days costs $1,959.62. Now, I always use Travelers Autobahn. They're not sponsoring this video, but I just genuinely feel like you get a really good bang for your buck. They're really affordable. The vans have everything you need, and it's just a really fun company. So the next cost was insurance. So they do have different options, which all van hire and car hire places do. Personally, I've been burnt too many times with having to claim on insurance and losing my bond. So I think there was an option to not pay for any insurance, but you would have had to leave a deposit or bond for a few $1,000s. I'd rather just pay the insurance. So we paid $30 a day, which totals to $420 for the 2 weeks. So just remember, these costs are for 2 people. My daily budget for the trip was $100. So I wanted that $100 to include fuel, accommodation, activities, and any other random bits. The great thing about being in a camper van is not only does it work as your transport, but it doubles up as your accommodation. So we probably spent about half the trip in paid campsites because we needed to plug in to use the power to charge our phones, laptops, cameras, etc. Day 1. So we left Perth and we spent a bit of time in Fremantle at the markets before heading down the coast. Now, we did pick the van up in the afternoon, so we didn't have heaps of time, but we made it down to Bunbury for sunset. We stayed on a free campsite here where we just parked up at the beach. It was lovely. First morning waking up in the van, and we were on the beach. It was great. So the first day, the accommodation, we spent $0. We went out for dinner, and then we did buy like ice for the esky. We bought like loads of other food for the week as well. So the total for food on the first day was $143.70. And then we spent $3.50 on parking. So day 1 total was $147.20. day 2, we drove down to Busselton, one of my favorite places. We spent $51.20 on food, $47 on a powered campsite. Now, the good thing about being on a powered campsite is that you have access to firstly power, but showers, and there usually is a campground kitchen as well. You'll see throughout the days that, you know, some days we don't spend as much and then other days we spend a bit more, but generally we would have breakfast at the camper van and then we would maybe eat lunch out or dinner and then cook one of the other meals. Day 2 total, $98.20. So day 3, we woke up in Busselton and we headed further down the coast, some beautiful beaches. We stopped at Yallingup for the night. We paid $38 again for a paid campsite. And there were a few times when we couldn't find any free campsites or any that were near a bathroom. Obviously that's important. What if you need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night? Obviously you could do like a little, you know, a little pee in the bushes, but you're not going to be wanting to drop the kids off at the side of the road. So yeah, that night we paid for a powered campsite, and then we spent $73.90 on food, which I don't think is that bad. I feel like this section of Australia here, there isn't that many like really expensive activities, or we just couldn't find them. So we did the jetty, we had to pay, I think it was like $4 there. And then we did a lighthouse walk in one of the parks and we spent $18 on activities. So on total for day 3, we spent $129.90. Day 4 was a little expensive. We ended up going to Margaret River for the day and then we camped the night in Trevally. Again, we couldn't find any free park ups. Download WikiCamps if you come to Australia because there is a ton of campsites on there that shows you which one's free, which one's good, and there's even little ratings. So just a little tip for you. I feel like van life was a bit of a shock for us at first. So we actually spent $25 each going to a yoga class. And honestly, if you're ever in the Trevally area, go to this yoga class. I think there's only like one yoga studio there, but it was beautiful. So bit of a splurge, not many people. I probably wouldn't do yoga every day, but I like to experience different yogas. I don't even know why I'm justifying myself, it's my money. We didn't actually spend any money on fuel for the first 3 days until we got to day 4, and we spent $78 on fuel. On food, we spent $84.12. So we spent $247.12 on day 4. Yeah, day 5, we spent $0 on fuel. We spent $38 on accommodation. Now this was a powered site. It was actually a really nice one. There was like little baby kangaroos everywhere. We spent $83.24 on food. And then we did an activity that was $48. We went down to the caves. They're quite big in the sort of Hamlin Bay region of Western Australia. So that was really cool. So day 5, we spent $169.24. Day 6, we were driving down to Albany and we stayed in the Stirling Ranges because we were doing the Bluff Knoll hike the following day. We spent $76 on fuel. Our accommodation, questionable. If you've seen the vlogs, you'll see that we just parked at the side of the road. So we paid $0 for accommodation that night. Food, we spent $99, so I think we got food for quite a few days then, and we had lunch out. Activities, we spent $57, and that was National Park entry and the giant treetop walk, which was amazing. Really liked that. So our total for day 6 was $232. So day 7, we drove from the Albany area down to Chains Beach Caravan Park. We spent $74 on fuel that day. We spent $45 on a powered site, and then we spent $11 on laundry. So this day, I remember there was a place that we could have camped for free, but we had no clothes, so we had to check into a powered site, and we were literally on this long stretch of road, middle of nowhere, so we just paid for accommodation. And then we spent $59 on food. So in total for day 7, we spent $189. Now day 8, we spent $30 on fuel. We got a bit worried towards this part of the trip because it was really long stretches of roads, and people said like, if you see a petrol station, just fill up. So anytime we saw a petrol station, we would just like put a bit of petrol in. So we only spent $30 on fuel that day. We spent $0 on accommodation because the accommodation was a free campsite and it was very creepy. I'll just leave this here. Food, we spent $98.38. So that brings the total for the day $128.38. Pretty good budget for the day, I think. And then we made the final drive down to Esperance, which is like the creme de la creme for the Southwest Australian trip. So we spent $87 on fuel. Our accommodation for the night cost $45. The accommodation was very busy and very limited in Esperance, so we didn't have much choice. So we spent $45 on accommodation. And then we spent $77.50 on food. So I remember we went out for like a nice curry this night, and then we cooked pasta in the van for lunchtime, which was a very like normal routine for us. So that brings, oh, I forgot, we spent $30 playing mini golf because it rained. So that brings the total for day 9 at $239.50. Day 10, we spent $0 on fuel, $45 on accommodation. We stayed at the same campsite again, and then $80 on fuel. So in total, we spent $125 for day 10, which I think, again, pretty reasonable. You can see the cost sort of like one day we might spend loads of money, the next day we might not spend a lot. Day 11, we spent $70 on fuel. We stayed in the creepy campsite again for free, so that was $0. We spent $46 on fuel, another good day. We paid $15 for entry to Cape Grande National Park. That brings day 11's total to $131. So day 12, we drove back to Busselton because I was working with a company and I was staying in their cabin for a few nights. So full disclosure, we didn't actually spend any money on accommodation those 2 nights, but we did have to drive back to Busselton. So the fuel was $135.40. The accommodation was free, and we spent about $102 on food. So we went out for some nice pizzas and we bought some food for the cabin that we were staying in. I will say, I feel like in the small little towns, I don't know if anyone else agrees with me, the small little towns in Australia, they charge a lot more for food than usual. Like some places we would go, we would spend like $35, $40 on a meal each. And I was like, whoa, that is very expensive. Usually I would only spend like $20, $25. So the total for day 12 was $237.40. Actually, that's quite a lot considering we're getting our accommodation for free. Day 13, we're still in Busselton, so we didn't spend any money on fuel, no money on accommodation, and then we spent $68.50 on food. The final day, so day 14, we had to drive back up to Perth, so we spent $105 on fuel. We had to give the van back full, so we topped it up a little bit more when we got to Perth. Accommodation free because I stayed at my family's who lived there. We spent $44 on food, $10 on a cheeky little car wash, and $40 on an Uber to get to my auntie's. So that brings day 14's total to $199. So that is everything we spent in 14 days. So we mainly spent money on the van, food, accommodation, and fuel. So now I'm going to tell you the total for each segment of the trip, how much that was. So van rental, including insurance, was $2,379.62. Food for both of us for 2 weeks, we spent $1,110.54. Fuel came to $655.40. I felt like that was pretty reasonable considering we drove over 2,000 miles. I thought that was pretty good. And then accommodation was $293 for the both of us for 2 weeks. Again, I thought that was really good. Other was $282.50. So this was activities, random things we would buy, or entrance to national parks and car parks. So this brings the grand total for the trip to $4,721.06, or $2,360.53 each. So that is everything excluding the flight. So looking at this budget, it does sound like a lot of money, but we traveled a lot, we saw loads of things. I don't feel like we held back on going out for food at times. Personally, I prefer to spend more money on food. I don't drink alcohol, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke or anything like that. So my budget for food is probably a bit higher than other people's. I think this is a pretty reasonable amount. Please let me know down in the comments. Please don't roast me for this. This is just how much I spent. Australia is kind of an expensive country to travel, but you know, if you've moved here, the wages are a lot higher, so it doesn't feel that expensive. If you haven't already, I'd really do encourage you to go watch my Western Australia travel series. I'll link it down below as well and link it up here. If you're looking to move to Australia, I have a free mini guide on preparing to move here. So if you've ever had that like itch of maybe I want to move to Australia on a working holiday visa, I've put heaps of resources into a mini guide. Hopefully this should like minimize any worries because I've put it all into a mini guide. I'm working on a more comprehensive ebook because I get so many questions from you guys about moving to Australia. I honestly love it here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting and insightful to see like how much things cost in Australia. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Please consider subscribing if you want to see future content like this, or if you have a fancy move to Australia. I've got loads of videos. I'll link them down below. So yeah, until next time, take care and peace out.